Section 8.2, Solving Linear Equations, ax plus b equals c. Our objective for this video is to learn how to solve equations of the form ax plus b equals c. Remember from our previous video that we looked at equations of the form ax equals c or a plus b equals c. Now we're going to combine those and look at how to solve ax plus b equals c. So our general procedure for solving equations of this form is to, first of all, just like previously, combine any like terms on both sides of your equation. Then we're going to use the addition principle of equality to eliminate any numbers being added or subtracted to both sides of the equation. And then last, we'll use the multiplication or division principle to eliminate any constants that are being multiplied with our variable so that we can get our variable to have a coefficient of 1. And then again, remember, you should check your answers by substituting back into the original equation. In our first example, we want to solve the equation 3x plus 3 equals negative 18. Well, since we have no like terms to combine, the first thing we're going to want to do is get rid of this plus 3 by subtracting 3. When I do that, I get 3x, those have simplified to 0 now, equals negative 21. And then I divide both sides by 3, and x equals negative 7. So we will take a moment now and check this problem to make sure our solution is correct. So we take our original equation, 3x plus 3 equals negative 18, and let's put in the x is negative 7. So that gives me 3 times negative 7 plus 3 equals negative 18. But that's negative 21 plus 3. And negative 21 plus 3 is negative 18, and negative 18 equals negative 18, so we know we have the correct solution. In our second example, we're going to see if we can combine like terms. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and rewrite this so that my variables are over on my left-hand side. So I'm going to have 2y minus 14 minus 4y equals negative 26. So 2y and negative 4y can be combined to negative 2y. Then I'm just going to go ahead and bring down my minus 14 since there's nothing to combine with it. Then to get rid of minus 14, we're going to add 14 to both sides. So those will cancel and give me negative 2y equals negative 26 and 14 would be negative 12. Then we divide both sides by negative 2 and we get that y is 6. In example 3, I'm going to again rearrange this so I can get my variable first. You don't have to do this, but some students find that it's a little easier to solve the problems if they do that first. So remember, we want to try to combine like terms. So I'm going to go ahead and take these two constants and combine them. So if I do 16.53 and subtract 7.43, I'm going to get 9.1. So I'm going to bring down my negative 18.2z plus 9.1 equals 0. Then we will subtract our 9.1 and get negative 18.2z equals negative 9.1. And then we're going to divide by negative 18.2. Now, if you use a calculator for that, we should get positive 0.5, which we know to be a half. And so our answer is that z should equal a half. In example 4, similar to what we did in the last problem, the first thing we're going to need to do is combine some like terms. So I have 5.1x minus 1.8x. So if I subtract that, I get 3.3x. Then I'll bring down my plus 7.4 since there's no like terms to combine to that, and equals negative 9.1. Then I'm going to subtract off my 7.4x, or my 7.4, and I get 3.3x, those are going to give me 0, equals, and then if I take negative 9.1 minus 7.4, I get negative 16.5. Then I divide both sides by 3.3. 3.3 divided by 3.3 is just 1x, And negative 16.5 divided by 3.3 would be negative 5. So my solution is that x should equal negative 5. Our next problem is a little more difficult just because we have to work with fractions. So let's take and eliminate the 5.2, or the 5 halves, by adding 5 halves to both sides. And we can either use a calculator to add those, or we could get like denominators. I'm going to go ahead and just use the calculator. And when I add, I get 25/18. But then if I have 5/6x equals 25/18, here is where we mentioned in the previous video, sometimes you'll want to divide to eliminate a constant that's multiplied with an x, and sometimes you'll want to multiply by reciprocals. If my constant is a fraction, I normally go ahead and multiply by reciprocals, because if you divide by a fraction, remember that to simplify that, you have to multiply by the reciprocal anyway. So now if I multiply 6/5 times 5/6, I get 1x. And then on the other side, we can work this without a calculator by just doing some simplifying. And I know that we have 25 and 5, which would simplify to 1 and 5. And 6 and 18 would simplify to 1 and 3 by taking out common factors. So I end up with 5/3, which again, you could also use a calculator to get that answer. And you can leave it in fraction form or in decimal form. In the next example, we have some like terms that we need to combine. So we have 1/2 x plus 3/4 x minus 2/3 x. So let's go ahead and combine that. And again, we'll use our calculator. So once I combined, I get negative 7/6 x plus 7/2 equals 0. But now we'll subtract 7/2 from both sides and get negative 7/6 x equals negative 7/2. And again, I would eliminate the negative 7/6 by multiplying by negative 6/7, since that's the reciprocal. And negative 6/7 times negative 7/6 is 1x. When you multiply reciprocals, you get 1. And then on the other side, I can do some simplifying first. Negative 7 and positive 7 would simplify to 1 and negative 1 because they're both divisible by 7. And 2 and 6 would simplify to 1 and negative 3. And now if I multiply numerators, I get 3 over multiply denominators, I get 1. So my answer is that x equals 3. Let's look at another fraction problem. This time we don't have any like terms, so we'll start by getting rid of the 1/2 by subtracting 1/2. And if I take 5/8 minus 1/2, that's going to give me 1/8. Then if I want to get rid of 3/4, let's multiply by the reciprocal of 4/3. And again, let's do some simplifying. So we have 4 and 8, which would simplify to 1 and 2 if I divide both of those by 2, or by 4. Now multiply across the top, I get 1. Multiply across the bottom, I get 6. And so I end up with 1y equals 1/6, or just y equals 1/6. We're now to the point in the video where you have some practice problems to work on. Make sure you work through those, show your work, and then when you finish, restart the video and you can check your answers. Here are the solutions to the 4 practice problems. Mark any problem that you got wrong, and then remember to ask me about that in class the next time that we meet.